In today's video, we're going to talk about 5 mistakes that salespeople make when they're talking to prospects. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. So in today's video, what I want to talk about is 5 things that I see people doing when they're in their sales process. Now you'll remember in the video that I'll link up here, I talked about people avoiding sales, and this is not the people I'm talking about in today's video. I'm actually talking about people who are salespeople. They are in the role, they are in the, they're in the flow, but mistakes that I see them make. And this can happen everywhere from our clients, where I'm monitoring how they're selling, to sitting in a coffee shop pre-COVID, where I would listen to people selling a prospect in the coffee shop and I would cringe a little bit. These are the 5 most common things that I see salespeople do that really put themselves in a tough position as it relates to their engagement with the prospect. Now, the first one is not asking enough questions. The prospect is there to find a solution to a problem they have. Your job is not to, shooting information like it's coming out of a fire hose, but instead to ask questions. And why are we asking questions? To qualify them, to find out what the real problem is, to figure out what the consequences are of not figuring out the problem, to find out how long they've had the problem, to find out who else is involved in solving the problem. There is so much that a prospect can tell you if you ask the right questions, that they will actually give you the recipe on how to close them. But a lot of salespeople are so concerned about getting their information out that they lose the sales trigger opportunities that the prospect will give them if they just shut up and ask the right questions. The second mistake that salespeople make, and this is one that I notice all the time, that most people can't self-identify. And the challenge is determining what the quality of experience is for the prospect. So what do I mean by experience? Have they ever bought the product or service from you before? Now, I've had people sell above me, which means they're telling me things assuming I have expertise, or selling below me, which is talking to me like they think I'm an idiot. The job of any salesperson is to determine the level that the prospect is at and to meet them there. So what I might do with a prospect is to say to them, have you ever worked with a business coach before? If yes, tell me about the experience. If no, then I'll ask the question of, did you ever play sport in high school or university? And again, I'm looking to see if they know what a coaching role looks like. The role at GoCEO most resembles a sports coach, looking at how we can build the skills to make them a well-rounded player that gets a lot of wins. I don't just jump into a prospect assuming that they know what business coaching is. And in fact, 9 out of 10 people that we talk to are really looking for a personal coach, not a business coach. Once I know that they're looking for something that we don't do, then I'm able to move out of that meeting and make sure that they find the right person that can give them the solution that they're looking for. Always gauge your prospect's experience level before you get too deep into your process. The third mistake that salespeople make when talking to a prospect is not looking for what the real problem is. Let's assume that you are an accountant and somebody sits down with you and they say, well, I don't have an accountant and I think I need someone to help me do my taxes. The accountant who might be selling those services might identify the problem as that client not having an accountant. But if you were to dig deeper, you might find out that that client hasn't filed taxes for 5 years, hasn't put money aside, hasn't been taking payroll deductions on their staff. Like, there could be a lot of problems much greater than them not having an accountant to do their year end. And so you would start to ask those questions. But if you minimize that the problem is, well, you don't have an accountant, that minimizes the problem that that prospect has. If you start to dig deeper in those questions and you find out they could be on the wrong side of the governing tax body, and there could be fines, there could be jail time, there could be a lot of things, that is a deeper solution for you to be able to solve, which would be, I understand you haven't filed taxes for 5 years, you haven't done payroll remittances, you don't have tax money set aside. Aside from me becoming your accountant, I will deal with the IRS, if you're in the US, or CRA, if you're in Canada, and I will call them and let them know we're putting a plan in place to get you on the right side. Their issue is they have run afoul of the governing body, which could come with huge penalties. And you, as the accountant taking responsibility, can solve that problem because you know the steps to take. So again, always probe deeper into what the real problem is. Because we work with a lot of women, the common thing that comes up is when I'm probing, women will say, I have a successful business, but I need to build it to sell it, and I don't want to be a bag lady. That might sound funny to a lot of people, especially the male viewers, but if you talk to a woman in her mid-50s, especially if she is really responsible on her own for her retirement, it's a concern that is quite common, is not being destitute and not having the assets to get them through retirement. The fourth mistake that salespeople make, which builds onto the previous one, is not valuing the benefit of the solution. When we're talking to a prospect, we're looking to see what the problem is and what the real value is to them of having that problem solved. So again, building on the previous example of some of our, middle-aged clients who are in their mid-50s worried about not having succession and or retirement, the real value of that solution is having X amount of money set aside, being able to sell their business for a profit, and using that capital to either fund other things that they want to do or to put in with an investment advisor that can then make sure that they have a comfortable retirement. So for that situation, the solution we're providing is not business coaching and or advisory services, but instead growing their business model to the point where they can retire and sell the company and enjoy retirement without worrying about running out of cash. So always make sure that you're coming up in your mind anyway what the value is of that problem being solved. Peace of mind, greater wealth, sustainability in the business model. These are just examples of what we do. But in yours, there will be a value that is greater than what you're charging. And if there isn't, you need to find it. And the fifth mistake, which I've mentioned a lot of times on this channel, is not qualifying the prospect properly. Once you know what the problem is, you've asked the right questions, you've found out what the real problem is, and you value that problem, then all you have to figure out is, do they have need? Do they really have the problem that you've identified? And do they own that that's their problem? And then the means. Do they have the money to pay you what you're asking to solve that problem? And remember, the value that you provide in the solution should always be greater and exponential than the money that you're charging. And if not, you need to tweak that. Anyway, I hope that was helpful. These are 5 mistakes that I see made all the time. And these mistakes are ones that I made early on as well, and that I switched my sales process and that of the Go CEOs to really address that we're digging in the questions properly, identifying the solutions properly, looking for what the value is of the problem that we can solve, and then of course qualifying. What used to take me an hour meeting, I can now do 5 minutes on the phone from a qualifying perspective, and I'm able to dig into the problem pretty quickly because normally it's one of 6 problems that most people have that come to see us, which I will cover in an upcoming video. Anyway, as always, thanks for watching. Consider subscribing, give a thumbs up. Questions can be put below. And remember, gladiators eat first, and they are always perfecting the way that they engage prospects to leave them better than they find them. See you in the next video.